Good afternoon, and thank you for joining today's Guide Product Webex on PalletTrack, a proven inventory management solution. Today's presenter will be Randy Kenny. He is our Guide Product Manager. During the presentation, all lines will be on mute. We ask that you use the chat box for any questions that may come up, and we will answer them at the end. Without further ado, Randy, take it away.
All right, thanks, Elsa, and welcome everyone to today's session. Glad you could join us. This is actually, I think some of you may have attended a Scan and Track webinar that we did back in August. And during that webinar, I touched on the PalletTrack module because the PalletTrack is part of a bigger product, if you will, called Scan and Track. And there seemed to be a lot of interest in it, even though we just briefly touched on it at that point. So that's why we wanted to kind of do a separate webinar here just on the features and functions within the PalletTrack module. And if it's of interest, we can certainly set up a more personalized demo as well. Of course, the webinar type format that we have here is not real conducive to being interactive and question and answer kind of thing. Although at the end, I do want to make sure we save time for any questions that you put in the chat window to address those. But if what you see is of interest, we can certainly set up a more personalized demo outside of here. The last slide in the presentation here has contact info and all the different ways you can get in touch with us. So with that, I want to go through a few slides about the overview of benefits as it relates to Scan and Track. Primarily for those who weren't on the August webinar, I want to at least kind of set the picture for what the overall product is intended to do and so forth, and then we'll drill into with the customer case study and product demo, actually showing you the product and the PalletTrack features themselves. And then we'll save time at the end for some Q&A. Okay, so with that, again, this is on the overall product we call Scan and Track. It is a mobile data collection for your shop floor or your distribution center, your warehouse, what have you, to do all of the most common XA transactions, whether they be inventory or labor related. So the idea is from a mobile front end, from a barcode scanner or some kind of a mobile device, you can be conducting transactions at the point that the transaction's actually happening and not writing things down and later doing it back on some terminal. So that's really the kind of overall overarching idea of Scan and Track. So we do support all the common XA transactions, and I'll show you briefly anyway kind of what all those entail from both the inventory and labor standpoint. We do have full support in Scan and Track as a front end to picking, shipping, and invoicing. And this is as you would do it in green screen. The PowerLink versions of picking and shipping are pretty limited, as you probably know if you've tried to get in there. So what we've done is we allow you to basically collect the data as if you were in a green screen environment, and we process it that way. So you can do, for instance, partial shipments and ship from locations other than default stock locations and the things where PowerLink still limits you even today. So we do have a front end capability for that. And again, if we have our recording from the Scan and Track session back in August on our YouTube page. And that's where we went into a lot more depth related to these inventory transactions and pick, pack, and invoicing and shipping and so forth. So that's available. But again, if PalletTrack is of interest and you want to also touch on those areas, we can certainly do that in a more personalized demo. I think one of the real beauties of Scan and Track and across the product is that we are 100% system link based. So that is the transaction engine that we're using and not TR data. So what that means, I'm sure you know TR data, it's been out there for 30 years now, but there are certain transactions that get written to TR data, and at some later point in time, you go through a select and edit process and you determine if there's any errors, and then you have to go back and fix things, and it's all kind of after the fact. It's much more of a batch mode in that environment. Whereas by doing it all through System Link, what we get is real-time transaction verification at the time the transaction's occurring, and then if it passes the edits, real-time transaction posting to XA. And you'll see that as we go throughout the demo today. So that's a real big benefit in that, you know, if you're going to get an error or you're going to get a warning message, just as if you were sitting at a PowerLink screen or even a green screen for that matter, you're going to get that same error, that same warning. It's going to come back to you on the handheld device. Everything is done through a browser interface, so it's a sleek, graphical, kind of modern look and feel. And so any device that supports a web browser, we can run Scan and Track from. I'm going to be showing it to you today from a PC or a laptop browser, if you will, from my home office. But it works with a multitude of devices that are out on the market today, readily available. One of the other nice features is that we don't require any additional XA user licenses for Scan and Track. So if you have System Link, then you've already got the required XA license. It's really just to kind of link to the System Link. Scan and Track is licensed per device, not per XA user. So we don't consume any additional XA user licenses. And what that also means is that by license, if you have a one device license, that could be used on multiple shifts. So you could have different people using the same device across 3 shifts, and it's only one license for Scan and Track. So it's by device that you're going to be pulling up these screens and doing transactions from. And then what we're going to focus on today is this new add-on module that we've built out and implemented with a couple customers related to PalletTrack. So we'll get a lot more in depth into detail on that. And anytime we implement something like this, a technology like this, we always want to try to also work with you on looking at your processes and trying to utilize the time of implementing new technology as a way to look at, is there ways we can improve your processes? So, again, if you've already got processes in place that you feel are best practice and, are working for you and don't need any improvement, then sure, you can take the technology and put it on top of it and make things more efficient and all of that and be more productive. But most of the time we find that there's lots of opportunities to also improve process by implementing this type of a more real-time technology. So we'll work with you along those lines as well. Okay, just a little more detail then, and then we'll get into the demo. But as I said, it's a browser-based interface, so that's HTML5 is the modern language for building web-based systems. And that allows us to basically use a wide variety of input devices, iPads, smartphones, internet browsers from a PC or laptop. Most commonly, given what the product is intended to do and where you use it, it's through barcode scanning guns that you may already have in place. As long as it supports HTML5, then Scan and Track can run on it. That's really the only requirement from a hardware standpoint. The other thing is that because we're doing truly doing System Link transactions, we are doing the XA transactions just as if someone were keying it in on a terminal in PowerLink or in green screen. So it's not a third-party bolt-on. There's no intermediary files. We're not synchronizing data to some other database, and that's where the validation is done. We're actually making System Link calls directly back to XA and validating it at the point of the transaction. So it really improves the utilization of the investment you already have. One of the customers, one of the CIOs where we implemented this, his quote was that Scan and Track provides feet to XA. So you're still doing everything as if you were in XA, you're just doing it in a mobile format out in your manufacturing floor or warehouse or distribution center. So, and one of the other benefits then is that we can produce error messages, warning messages. Again, as I mentioned earlier, the same type of message you get back from System Link, or from PowerLink, I should say, you will get back from System Link, and we display that on the screens. So that helps to improve inventory accuracy. We do have native support in the product for barcode labeling if you don't already have something in place to do that. Because with these types of projects, having barcode labels and utilizing barcodes makes things much more efficient. You certainly don't need them. I mean, you can key in the data and so forth, but it makes it a lot easier if you're scanning barcodes, cuts down on errors, and makes things more efficient. So we can interface to systems like IntelliChief, TL for Bartender, the ones listed here. But if you don't have those in place, we can also work with you during the implementation to design the labels the way you want them to work, and you can print them right from within Scan and Track. And I'll show you a couple examples of that today. Okay, and then lastly, within Scan and Track, we do adhere to all of the security rules that are enforced in XA, but we also give you the ability to even limit it further than that. So if you have certain users that only do certain transactions, whether it be in the picking area or conveyance or receiving, then you can control what functionality those users see when they log into Scan and Track. So they're only going to see the transactions that you set up for them. And along those lines, you can create badge groups for users that have similar security and access for just making things easier to maintain. We do fully support barcoding and turnaround numbers. If you already have paperwork that has barcodes, turnaround numbers, things like that, we can utilize those. Or we can generate new paperwork, new labels, work with you on designs to help improve the process as well. So this includes all the different barcode formats, whether it be code 309, code 128, the common ones, or even QR codes and two-dimensional codes and things like that. So we do, from a deployment standpoint, support both a fully on-premise approach, or if you prefer to have the Scan and Track pieces hosted in the cloud, we can do that as well. In fact, the environment that I'm going to show you today is more of a cloud-based environment just because of where I'm situated. So I'm working out of my home office in Grand Rapids, Michigan today, and I'll be connecting to a web server that is hosting Scan and Track for us in Los Angeles, California, and that is going to be connected back to an XA environment in our Cincinnati office for Guide Technologies, our demo box. So you'll see the speed and all of that, and at which time we get errors back and things post in that kind of global environment. But everything can certainly be hosted all on premise too, and you're only working within your own four walls. It's really depending on whatever your needs are. So because it is web-based, internet-based, we can work across multiple locations, multiple I-series environments, all with a single install of the Scan and Track pieces themselves. So with that, let's get right into the heart of it and look at the product. Let me bring up the sign-in screen here. First of all, get rid of this. All right, so this is, in fact, let me just back out of this and we'll start from the beginning. I'm just going to go into open up a web browser, and I'm going to type in a URL here. Yeah, this is now going, as I was saying, from my home office out to our server in Los Angeles, California, that's serving this up. And what if you were on a mobile device, it may look something like this. So these screens are all scalable to fit within a certain pixel count, the device you're working on. But I'm just going to leave it full screen so we don't have the background noise that you're looking at. But so from here, this is the login screen, and they can log into a certain environment. You can see right now we're at it. This is an XA environment in our Cincinnati location. I can also from here change location to go to other environments, and I've just got a couple other ones set up here just for demonstration purposes. But this is in our Cincinnati office. This is at an XA environment that's out in Tucson, Arizona. And this is one that's actually in Kingston, Jamaica. So just to give you an idea, and you can set up users to only be able to log into certain environments and default to certain environments and all of those things within the admin section of Scan and Track. We're going to log into our demo environment. And of course, they could just be scanning the badge number if you've got that barcoded on the back of their badge. And when this comes up, this particular login that I'm going in here as Rick Altino is I've got it set up to show all of the transactions in Scan and Track. Just I wanted to kind of show this to you first, so you've got kind of an overall picture of what the product can do, and then we'll zero in on the PalletTrack functions. So, and that's really these top buttons here, all the way down to rack label print, the things that start with LP. That's all related to PalletTrack. And so if you purchase that module, which is an optional module, that's what you get. And I'll show you on the XA side in PowerLink the objects that you get there as well. If you don't purchase that and you just get the base product, you get everything else here. So these next three are related to customer orders. So picking, generating shipments, invoicing can all be done from here. Then we have a series of transactions that relate to manufacturing orders here, issuing material, doing pick completes to MOs, RMs, manufacturing receipts, job on, job off, some of the quality transactions and so forth. We have the same related to purchasing transactions, receiving POs. And if you have certain items designated as inspect on receipt when they come in, it will do the RI transaction. If they're not set, then it'll do the RP transaction. So it automatically detects that. We have related quality transactions, warehouse transfers, both intra and inter warehouse can be done here. We have a couple queries here. In fact, this is kind of unique to Scan and Track, but we can go in, think of these as PowerLink views. So if I go in, and in this particular case, this is just a query, okay? So it's just providing information to the user that has the handheld on the shop floor. So we've picked a couple here that we think would be most useful, but think about anything that you could create a PowerLink view, we can also make available using this type of architecture on the handheld device if it's something that would be valuable for that end user to be able to see. So in this case, I put in a location number in this warehouse, and it's basically coming back and saying, here's all of the products that are in that location, along with relevant information as to batch lot, FIFO date, quantity on hand, allocated, available. If they are QC controlled, it's giving you the status here of what status they're in. We can also, so that's looking at it from a location standpoint. We can also look at it from an inventory standpoint. So kind of the inverse, if I put in a part number or scan a part number, it's going to tell me every location that product is sitting in right now with the same information. So again, I just show you that to show you that those types of things can be certainly designed in as part of the implementation effort. And then down at the bottom, we've got, just some of the miscellaneous issues and, planned issues, miscellaneous receipts, scrap transactions, and so forth. So that's kind of the overall product. I'm going to log off here and just log in as under my badge. And you can see that the way I've set this up in admin is I'm just showing the PalletTrack functions here. So that's what we're going to spend the time today going through. I'm going to, as I go through each of these, I'm going to explain kind of how one of our customers is using this to give you a kind of a real world sense of hopefully paint a picture for each of these things. And go through it that way first and just kind of go through that explanation, and then we'll come back and actually do a real demo, putting data in, creating pallets, moving pallets, breaking down pallets, and you can see, I'll show you exactly what's happening in XA on the back end as well. In my XA environment, I've got, you can see when we install Scan and Track, we're in PowerLink here, you've got customer service, production, and there's another tab called Scan and Track. And so we provide a series of objects when you purchase the product and we install it and so forth. And these last ones here, these last 5 are the ones that are related to the PalletTrack module. And what it really does, and let me pull one of these up here. So I'm just clicking on this. So this is showing me a list of all the pallets that I've created in this environment at a header level. And if I click on one of these, just as an example, you'll see this pallet has 2 items on it and different batch lots and expirations. So, well, actually it's the same item with different expiry dates, batch lots. So you can have either different items that make up a pallet, or you can have the same item with different expiration dates, batch lots, you know, if you do business in that manner. And what will happen is within Scan and Track, we provide that level of tracking at a pallet level. Okay, so it's over and above what you can do in XA. So these item numbers that you see here are the XA part number that you would see if you went into you know, item revisions and so forth. So these are the things that are stocked in eaches or in cases or bundles or feet or whatever the unit of measure may be. What Scan and Track allows you to do as we build up these pallets is to provide that kind of in a consolidated view. So you can take, you know, whatever products you're receiving, build them onto a pallet, and then track through inventory and ultimately out to picking and shipping at a pallet level. So that's really kind of at the core kind of what this provides to you. So think about it that way. In fact, we've got one customer that doesn't even do pallets, but they want to track, they move product from one WIP area to another WIP area to another WIP area. And what they want to do is track what is on that cart. So it's not really a pallet, but they use the same functionality, same thought process, where I'm going to take product off of, you know, this operation, and I'm going to put it onto this cart, and then I'm going to add product at another operation, putting it on a cart. So you're tracking it at an inventory level as it moves from area to area to area. So there's different ways of looking at it, but at a high level, if you think of it as basically taking however you want to consolidate products and group them together so that you have visibility to it for whatever reason you have in your business, this can provide that kind of capability. Okay, so with that, let me kind of go back here and just kind of talk through each of these first of all, and then we will actually go in and build some pallets, like I said, and go through the different functions. But I'm gonna just go into the screen so you can see it. So this is called the pallet receipt. This is kind of where the building of pallets first begins. So these can be coming from manufacturing orders, as you see here, purchase orders, if you're receiving against POs, or returns. So those are the 3 options we give you here to build up a pallet. So from a manufacturing order, you think about this at the end of a production line. You may have cases coming off of a production line, but you want to put those cases onto a pallet and have the system know that whatever you put on there is what you're going to track with what we call the license plate number. That license plate number represents all of the product that's on that pallet. So in one of the customers that I was going to talk about, they have 2 different manufacturing locations. One location has 5 different production lines, the other one has 3 production lines. They are a food and beverage distributor. It's actually the company down in Jamaica. They're, I think, the 2nd largest food and beverage distribution distribution center in the whole Caribbean area. And so they bought this product when they were building a brand new warehouse. It's a 350,000 square foot warehouse, and they were looking for something to manage that, the distribution center. And they've got these 2 production facilities that are located somewhere else, and they do the production of the beverages, and then they receive the manufacturing orders from there, and then they need to transfer that by pallet in the back of a truck from that manufacturing location, which is a warehouse in XA, to the distribution center, and maintain visibility and tracking of everything that's on that at a pallet level. So that's from the manufacturing standpoint, and I'll show you an example of that. From a purchase order standpoint, in their case, they have containers of product coming in from the US or around the world. Not only do they manufacture their own beverages, mostly it's flavored waters, grape flavored, basically any kind of flavor you can think of, they manufacture, but they also distribute Red Bull, Coca-Cola, Gatorade, things like that. So they'll get containers coming in, since they're kind of an import business, if you will, and they'll unload those containers and do it through these PO receipts to load up pallets for how they're actually going to store that product in their distribution center. So they have things coming from their production locations, which are under manufacturing orders. They have these containers coming in from brand name products, like I mentioned, that they're going to receive via purchase orders. And they also get returns that will come back, and they want to be able to, when they get a return back, be able to put that on a pallet, just like anything else. And if it passes inspections and things like that, then go and be able to restock that for resale. So this is really how we're going to build up a pallet that we're going to use in the demo today, is through here. This is kind of the starting point. Once we have a pallet, we can then do movements. In fact, let me show you in this Pallet Inquiry. If you remember back here, just so you can kind of see what we're going to be looking at. When I drilled into this particular pallet, this had these two products on it. If I go to Scan and Track and do this Pallet Inquiry, and I'm just going to type that one in, you can see the same thing from here as to what's on that pallet. So I just typed in one specifically. They could scan the barcode that's going to be on it, click on it, and so on the handheld device you can also see exactly what's on this. And so when we go to move, do the next step here, and we scan that pallet number, it's going to know the location that it's at. And I'm not going to go ahead and do this yet because I want to save that for when we go through the demo. But just to show you that by putting that in, it knows the from location. It knows where that pallet's at. Now you can change it, but it's going to default to that. And all you got to do is say, I'm going to scan this pallet barcode, and I'm going to scan the location that I'm sending it to, and it's going to move. By say move, it'll do TWs in XA for all of the different products that are on that pallet. So it knows from when we built it up in the first step what's on there, and when we go to move it, it will basically allow you in 2 scans of a barcode to move all of the individual products at a pallet level in XA. Okay, the other thing we can do, and this is used a lot at this distribution center, is once we have pallets built up, we can move product from one pallet to another pallet. So you could break a pallet down and say, I'm going to move product from here to here. You may be getting a customer shipment ready. You may be doing a picking process, if you will, and you're breaking down pallets in the picking area to create other pallets that you're actually going to load onto a container or the back of a truck to be delivered, whatever the case may be. So this gives you the ability here to move just between pallets from and to. We can also take individual product that may be stored in cases or eaches from a stock location and put it onto a pallet. So this is going to give you the ability here to just take an individual product and add it to a pallet that already exists. Or we can move product from a pallet and say, for whatever reason, we're going to put it back into a stocking location. So that's what this gives you the ability to do, just kind of the reverse of the 2 pallet. It says, from this pallet, I'm going to take this case and I'm going to put it back in stock for whatever reason I need to. So this gives you a lot of flexibility as to just managing those pallets after you've already built them up, you've put them into stock, but then you need to do things with them. You need to break them down, you need to create new ones, and do a variety of functions. So that's really kind of the meat of it, of what this does. We then have the Pallet Process. Now this is unique to this particular customer in Jamaica, and I'll explain why. With them, they have another solution called High Jump. You may or may not have heard of, but it is a route optimization software solution. So it will take customer orders that are being entered into XA and look at that are supposed to be delivered, on a particular day, and it will look at all of the orders that are to be delivered that day and come up with the best way to optimize delivery of those products in the back of trucks. So, and they'll do it geographically. So they'll say, in fact, let me pull one up here. It might make more sense. This is one that's already been picked, but it'll go through a series of multiple orders. So think of it like a consolidated pick list, if you will, in XA, where you've got multiple orders on there. But it'll basically tell them, based on the fact that we need to deliver to these today, the customers are geographically, GPS-wise, most optimized to be delivered here, there, X, Y, and Z kind of thing, to optimize that whole delivery process. So this particular function we built out for them to take that route, if you will, that High Jump is sending back to some custom tables that we built in Integrator, and basically let the pickers go through, pick these products, which these can be individual products that sit on a pallet in the picking area, or it might be in the warehouse, and build up that delivery route, if you will, that's already been optimized. And at the end of this, we move it to a location in XA called truck in its own warehouse. That means it's going out for delivery. And as the truck driver is delivering these to the customers, they're actually using the High Jump handheld device to sign off on it. And then that information comes back to XA so that we can close out the order and actually do the shipment and so forth in XA. So this is very customized to that interface and that integration. But the reason I bring it up is that, if you have external systems that you need to interface from an inventory management standpoint, the underlying technology that we have built Scan and Track and PalletTrack on enables that. So it's all XML data under the covers at the end of the day, whether we're transacting back and forth with XA via System Link. System Link is all XML based. Or in this case with High Jump or through other systems, that's a very modern way of systems to talk together. So because Scan and Track is built on that, we can do those types of integrations as part of an implementation effort. So that's really the heart of the day-to-day kind of processing of it. But some of these other things we'll just touch on here. The Pallet Print function basically allows me just to print a pallet label, and these can be designed for how you want them to print. In fact, when we build up a pallet, I'll come here and print it and show you what the output looks like, just so you can kind of get an idea of what a pallet label that has a license plate number would look like. But that if one gets damaged or for whatever reason you need to print it, that gives you the ability there. The Pallet Inquiry we looked at, not only can I do, like I scanned a particular one the last time, I can also do a wildcard in here, and it will essentially bring up anything that matches that wildcard search, as you can see here. And just by clicking on them, it'll then show you the details. So this one has 3 different items on it. Here's one with 4 different items and so forth. And here's one with 2 items. So just to give you an idea, you can quickly from the handheld see what's on a pallet. An operator can go up there, just scan the barcode that's on that label, and it'll tell them exactly what the system thinks is on that pallet. A lot of times those are shrink wrapped, and so the label's either just inside the shrink wrap or just outside, so without tearing it apart, they can easily see what's on it. We can also create new pallets. This is primarily used if you have an area, say at the end of a production line or in your receiving area, and you just want to have a bunch of pallets ready to go, and you want to print labels that you can affix to the pallet. So say you have 50 pallets and you just want to have them sitting there waiting for product, either coming off of manufacturing orders or coming in from purchase orders, and you just want to go grab a pallet and start loading it up. So this allows you to basically pre-print labels that can be affixed to the pallet. So you can give it how many you want, how many copies of each label. So if you want one on the front and the back, then you can have, count of 50, copies of 2, what location in the warehouse you want these to be, hit go, and it'll just print those out and you can affix them so they're ready to go. You can also create pallets at the time you're doing the receipt, which I'll show you here in a minute. And then the last couple things here, this was done for a customer that wanted to know where they had holes in their stocking locations in their warehouse. So if they had a big shipment coming in of like product and they wanted to store it all kind of relatively in the same area, they wanted a way to say, okay, so from this location to this location, and it could be the entire warehouse, show me where I have empty locations. So, these are bays on a rack that may be 6 bays high down an aisle in a certain section, so these warehouses can get extremely large, and this gives you a way to quickly say, where do I have some open spaces? I know I'm going to need to put product away and I want to keep it grouped together. So we gave them this capability to basically just see that relatively quickly. And then lastly here, this allows you to print location labels, section, dock bay, slots, bracket, and so forth. So it just allows you to put in a range and print labels if you need to reprint them, or if you're just setting up your warehouse, gives you the ability to print those so that they're all barcoded and ready to go. So, but again, like I said, the main functionality exists in these top functions, and that's kind of what I want from a product demo to make sure we walk through, and I can show you exactly how this works and what it's doing in XA. So I'm going to start here. So I showed you where we could create pallets through that other function, but I can also do it right from here and just say I want to create a new pallet. I've got product coming off of a manufacturing order. It sequentially generates the next one. I'm going to key in. You could also scan in, of course. Okay, and actually, let me show you back in XA real quick because I had that up. So here's the manufacturing order we're going to work with for that part number. Go into it. You can see here's the components on it, a couple operations, and so forth. So we're basically saying this has come off of the production line now, and we are going to receive it onto this pallet. It defaulted the item here. I'm going to put a quantity of 1. I'll put in an expiration date, 15/18. And batch lot. If you need it, hit submit. So what this should do is now go out to XA and say, for this manufacturing order, I just received it onto this pallet. And if we go over here and look at inventory transaction history, there it is. So it did an RM transaction because I'm receiving a manufacturing order at the end of a production line. It back flushed 2 of the items that were set up to be back flushed as part of that. So it did that RM from that scan and track screen, that quickly in the network environment I explained, just like you were doing an RM from a screen. It did the back flushing, it did the receipt, and all of that. And it also then put that product on that pallet. So I'm going to do a return here just to put a couple products on here, and we'll go take a look at it then. So in a return, you don't have an order, you're just scanning the part number. So we'll use the same one I just created. I could create a new one here, but go ahead and check it, validate it. We'll just put the same item, but this time with a different quantity because we're doing a return, and a different expiration date. Okay, so that received it. Now if I go back to XA, again in inventory history, that did a miscellaneous receipt. So it's basically saying I've got this product, it came back in as a return, and I'm gonna take it from the dock it came in on, I'm gonna put it on this pallet. So it's doing that and tracking that in XA. And just so you can see it, we'll go look at the pallet here. And you can see there's the two items, different expiration dates. One came from manufacturing order, quantity of one. One, there's no order because it was returned, quantity of 4, different batch lots. So what it's doing is it's building up that pallet and basically allowing me, and I could keep going here. I could put things from POs on there, more returns, more MOs, whatever the case may be. But due to the fact that this is a limited demo here, keep moving here. But I'm going to go ahead and print that so you can see what it looks like. So it just printed that label and just showing you visually here what the items are that are on that it printed. Now, if I had a barcode printer sitting next to me, it would just spit out. But I can also go into the admin section of Scan and Track here. And just log in here. And I have in here, there's a lot of things we can do here. But under print jobs, I can go to the printer that I've set up. And I can see here that it created, that's what a license plate in this particular customer's case looks like. And this is what will get affixed, on the pallet once the product has been loaded up there. And what it's basically got is here's the license plate number. That identifies every single product that's on there. And then each individual product has their own barcode here that represents the expiry date, where it came from, the part number, and the fact that it belongs to this pallet or this license plate number, if you will. So a couple different ways they can scan it depending on what they're doing. We also generated, so that's the larger label after you've loaded product onto the pallet. We also generate a smaller label. This is the one where if you just wanted to go ahead and pre-set up pallets and have this smaller label affixed to it so they could easily scan it, we give you this kind of little label too. And again, these can be designed for whatever makes sense in your environment and capture whatever data you want captured. But that's essentially what a pallet receipt process looks like. Now I can do a pallet movement on that. Scan that in. And like before, it knows I created it in this location. So I'm going to move it to a different location. Same warehouse, and we can default these if you want, but they can obviously be different warehouses. So in this one customer case I was saying where they're moving it from their production facility to their distribution center, they're different warehouses. And what happens in that case is it's going to move the entire pallet. So if I look back in XA at inventory transaction history, you can see we did 2 TWs basically. So here's the 4 for that one item. They're done so quickly, they're kind of interspersed here. And here's the 1 item. This was from the manufacturing order. But it does the TW, which has the obvious associated IW and RWs that go with it. And if I drill into one of these, you can see it's got a PalletTrack generated a reason code there. Before and after, it's saying here's where it was, here's where it moved it to. But basically what I wanted to show you is that it moved both the products with one pallet movement transaction in Scan and Track. Okay, so we'll do some pallet stocks here and then we can open it up for some Q&A. But I did want to just show you how this works and what it does in Scan and Track. So let's start with the from pallet. Let's go from the pallet we just created. And what it'll do here, it's kind of a nice feature, is put that in. It's going to tell you here's the 2 products that I know are on there. So let's say and all I have to do is click on it, or if you have a touch screen, you can use your finger and touch it. Say go from there, and I want to move it to this location in this warehouse. It already filled in the information that it knew about it. hit submit. Okay, and so it did, because we were moving to a different location. There's the related TW, but it only did that one product. So if we go and we look at that pallet now, it should only have one product on it because we just moved the one off of it to stock. So now let's do the opposite of that, and let's move that back onto the pallet. So again, if I put in a stock location, it's going to go out and check it. It's going to show me everything that's in that stock location, allow me just to pick it. So here's the one we just did for 4, filled in the information. Let's just move all 4 back, and we'll move it back to the same pallet for demonstration purposes. Submit. And it was successful. You never know in live demos, but that's good to see. And so we should see, yep, it moved the 4 back. So in this case, it went from 300 to 200, just as we told it to do. And then lastly, from and to, if we say we're just going to go, actually, let me refresh this. We're going to go from pallet. Again, it's going to list the items that are there. Fill it in. Let's go to another pallet. It doesn't really matter. I know I've got this one out here. Okay, so if we go and look at that through Pallet Inquiry, actually I'll do the wildcard here so we can see them both at the same time. You can see 108, it moved it off of, it moved the 4 with batch lot EFGH off of that one, and there it is on this one. There's the 4 right there. So it's handling all of that for you and tracking all of that at a pallet header level within Scan and Track. So if we look at that, you see it. So here's the one it created. Same thing we just looked at through Scan and Track interface. So hopefully that gives you an overview. We've got about 13 minutes left here, and I did want to save some time for some Q&A. But that's really kind of PalletTrack in a nutshell. More functionality than we were able to show back in August with the overall Scan and Track one. So like I said, that recording, if it's of interest, is available on our YouTube page. This one will also be available if there's other people in your organization that you want to take a look at it and they weren't able to make it. It will be available for you to show to them. So with that, Elsa, you want to let me know if there were any questions that we want answered?
Sure, let me take a look here. Looks like the first one we have is, can you interface to other shipping systems such as FedEx, UPS, etc.?
Yes. So a little different from the actual PalletTrack module, but we have the generate shipments function in the base product that you saw at the beginning there. And we have done that so where we can take data that we're collecting when you're going to generate a shipment and do the shipment transaction, the SA transaction in XA. And because these systems, again, are all XML based under the covers, we can send that relevant data to those types of systems. We're actually working with a customer now to interface Scan and Track from a shipping standpoint to a product called Varsity. It's a third-party product that's been out there for a long time, shipping product, actually green screen based. If any of you have that solution in place, but it's same idea. We're basically taking information that we're collecting during the shipment process and are able to send that via the interface over to Varsity. That part's not fully developed yet, but it gives you an example of the types of interfaces we can do as part of an implementation.
Okay. A second one came through. What if we have customizations in our process? How can those be incorporated?
Okay, couple ways to answer that. One begins with if the customizations that you have are done in Integrator, then that means System Link has visibility to it by definition of the fact that System Link along with PowerLink and NetLink are part of the Integrator suite. So if you've done customizations, say to add an edit to a field to generate an error if it's a required field or has to be within a certain range or whatever the case may be, then those are visible to System Link and the same edit will occur in Scan and Track, just as if they were doing it again through PowerLink. And that's also true for things like user exits. Again, if it's done in Integrator, then it's going to be visible and it will execute as part of us executing that function in XA. So if they are done the second part of that in green screen, then System Link doesn't have visibility to it, but we have implemented this at customers, and as part of the implementation, we have worked with them to move those edits from green screen into PowerLink, and then they are visible. So if you had something custom like that, we'd work with you again during the implementation to see if it would work out of the box, if it's done in Integrator, or if you needed any help moving that into Integrator, because then System Link can see it. That's what we use under the covers, so it becomes an edit in Scan and Track as well. Okay.
All right, and another one here. What if we do not do batch lot tracking? Is that a requirement?
Oh, no, not at all, not at all. So Scan and Track will enforce whatever business rules that XA is tailored to enforce, or not enforce for that matter. So if you do not have batch lot required in XA, then Scan and Track is not going to require it either. It's the same idea with, say, reason codes as another example. So if XA requires them, then Scan and Track will require them. If not required in XA, then they won't be required in Scan and Track. So that's really the beauty of using System Link as the underlying technology from a front-end system like this, because we're performing the same edits, we're following the same business logic and enforcing the same rules through our front end as if they were doing it in XA. Okay.
All right. Well, it looks like we're near the top of the hour. I don't see any other questions coming through. So with that, Randy, unless you have any final remarks, I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up. And as Randy mentioned, we will have the recording on our YouTube page, and I will also be sending it out later this afternoon.
Yeah, no, nothing further. Appreciate everyone's time today. And if there's any interest from what you've seen, certainly you can reach out to us. We'll also put we can put the presentation up as well, and that has the links, my email, along with all of our social media links to get to the YouTube page and things like that. So thank you very much for everyone's time.
Have a great afternoon. Thank you for joining.